Alright, so last tutorial I did this weird thing when I was rendering where I like made a bunch of different groups and like rendered in batches, and I'm like, this is kind of convoluted and gross, so maybe there's like a better convoluted, gross way to do things where it's you set it up once, it's a little more automated, you don't need to like switch back and forth between stuff. So this is my render. This is my first render. What am I saying? It's not the question. I don't know what I was saying. This is the straight render from from Maya, and you can see that the shadows here like aren't overlapping all crazy. The only place there's really issues is right down here, and that's because the shadow from the figure is overlapping the shadow on the ground, so you get this darker patch of shadow, which isn't like terribly physically accurate at all. But that's like probably something where I would just go in and like manually fix that in Photoshop, because I don't think that there's really a way to like do anything about that in Maya. So let me really quick just show you what I did, because I was playing with this for like half an hour and I didn't want to like record a bunch of stuff and then realize I didn't know what the heck I was doing. So the first thing I did is I changed the color of the shadow for the soda can. So you'll notice that's red, and then I did a little bit of stuff with light linking, which I'll explain in a second. For now, I just want to like run through real quick and like show you what I did. All right, so you'll notice that the shadow of the can, it's red now, so you can kind of see it a little better. But the shadow of the can matches the shape a lot better. There was no real reason to like go back and do that. It was just sort of like a weird pride thing, I guess. So I did. Anywho, so yeah, so I went through and I just darkened that a little bit. And you'll notice actually, so if I scroll in here, this is like the top of the can, which is getting shadows from this light, which I don't want because I'm just going to have to like comp out a bunch of different dumb stuff later. Like I don't want to comp that out in Photoshop. I might forget and then I'll have to go back and like redo stuff. So what I'm going to do, if I click on my soda can, in your attribute editor under the shape node, scroll down to this Arnold tab, and you can do a bunch of stuff. You can like turn it on and off. So in this case, if I turn the visibility off, you can actually see the shadow of this can just through the can, which is actually really off-putting. And if you turn off self-shadow, basically what that means is it won't get shadows cast on itself. So it's going to go through and basically just get rid of any shadows on this can. So now I don't need to just like deal with those later, which is great. The other thing I did is I just added a little bounce light over here. Just it helps lighten the shadow a little bit, but it also like the side of this figure was a little bit aggressively dark, I think, for the room, because it's a very white room. There is a lot of bounce light there, so I just threw that in there. The other thing that I did is I went in again and organized this a little bit with light linking. Basically what light linking does is you can set certain lights to affect or not affect certain objects. So if you go into Windows, Relationship Editors, you can scroll down here to light linking. I'm just going to do light centric. So the difference between light centric and object centric is basically just like how it displays in this little window here. So light centric is, it's going to show you all the lights. If you click on it, it'll show you all of the objects that are affected by that light. If I switch to object centric, it'll show me all my objects here. So if I click on soda can, you can see it's not affected by window, but it is by window 2 and bounce light. I'm actually going to rename this soda can just because it can help me be a little more organized. So again, it really it does exactly the same thing. It just depends on the functionality that you need. So in this case, I kind of prefer light-centric light linking. All right, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to go through and actually, this wasn't even necessary, was it? For some reason, I was thinking that the duplicate shadows were causing this dark area here, but they actually weren't. But while I'm here, I will explain light linking anyway. Oh yeah, that was kind of silly. Yeah, so Maya will automatically calculate, like, it's not going to duplicate your shadows like this because that's not how real shadows work. Again, this right here, this like little dark area is being caused because there's a shadow rendered in the background image, and that's what's causing that darker patch. That's totally not Maya's. And I was being silly, and that was like actually kind of convoluted and stupid that I tried to fix it like that. But anywho, alright, but anywho, so light linking. So in this case, here's my soda can light. Basically, what I was trying to do here is go through and say, cool, like I want the shadow from this. Actually, no, sorry, this is actually why I did the light linking. Because I have the soda can shadow, right? And this is like overlapping my table, and it's becoming extremely dark. Like it's basically doubling up on that shadow, doing the same thing it's doing here, which I very much don't want. So what I can do is if I, here's the default light here. So I'm going to go through, and if I click on table, it's going to not cast shadows on this table. So you can see, again, the shadows from this window soda can light are red. So if I have it affecting the table, you get this red shadow here, red shadow here. I will uncheck the table, and I now only have that shadow on my little figure statue thing. You'll also notice that it is now showing up on the keyboard as well, so I'm just going to like uncheck the keyboard. And now, again, I only have my shadow showing up on this object here. So the other thing that I did, then I needed a separate light, basically, that's going to, again, there's probably more streamlined ways to do this, but I needed another light to cast the shadow actually on the table from the figure and like on the keyboard. So I have this is the original light I put in. I just duplicated it. These are the exact same lights with the same attributes in the same position. So I just grabbed this window light here, and I have it hooked up so it affects basically everything except the soda can. And it actually, interestingly, doesn't make a whole heck of a lot of difference if that is affecting the soda can or not. What if I just... Where's that shadow coming from? That's actually really weird. Leave. Alright, so I'm just gonna hide that. Alright, so... Alright, cool. So here we have, like, the soda can light. Why is it... Oh. Whoops. Why is there a tiny figure in my scene? Alright. That's really weird. Anyway. Alright, yeah, so... Interestingly, this actually doesn't seem to make a huge difference if it hits the soda can or not. Either way... yeah. Alright, cool. Yeah, so the reason I did this is, again, literally just to get this little shadow across the soda can. If this figure was comped, like, 3 inches back in the scene, I wouldn't need to worry about that at all. But in this case, it does seem like I do actually need this soda can light. What I'm going to do is actually just run back in here real quick and set the shadow color of this to not red, because it is beginning to distract me a little bit. Cool. So again, you can see this looks pretty reasonable-ish. The other thing that I did, and again, there's probably a more reasonable way to do this, I suppose, but I needed basically one figure to be rendered. So I basically duplicated my figure. And the first reason that I did that is I need one figure that one of these lights is going to affect. So since I have two of, if I go into my color thing, you can see here's like figure and figure no render. Yeah. Alright, wait, so this is this. This is this. Okay, cool. I set that up poorly. So basically what's happening here is I have one figure that's actually going to take the light, and then one figure that is not going to render. So you can see I have this like fig no render guy, and I had gone down and turned off primary visibility. So basically it'll cast shadows, but it's no light is going to actually affect that. And the sort of, I guess, silly convoluted reason that I did that is because I need a figure that's going to take the shadow from this, so the light does need to affect it. So like the soda can light would need to affect this figure. However, this window light also needs to affect the figure in the sense that it needs to register that it's there and cast the shadow over here. And for that, the figure doesn't need to render, but it does need to exist and be affected by the light. But again, I don't want two overlapping figures here. It's just like kind of bad practice to have overlapping geometry. So by turning one off, it basically gets rid of that from the rendering perspective, since one of them is being ignored. So I have my main figure here, which is just going to be affected by soda can light and bounce light. And then I have, you can see, soda can light works with figure, not no render figure, and then same thing for bounce light. For this window light, it's hooked up with the no render figure and not the main figure. If I hooked it up to the main figure, you can see that the light on the face gets like crazy bright, which isn't what I want. Which is, again, why I set it up the way I did. And that's actually pretty much it. So the benefit of sort of setting it up like this compared to what I did before is I effectively only need to render one image. I don't need to render like two images and then awkwardly try to comp them together. And I can also, by doing this, it becomes really, really easy if I wanted to save this real quick. If I did want to like move this figure around in my scene, I would need to grab, oh my god, such aggressive lag. Is this even in this group right now? Okay, there's nothing here. So I would need to grab these. Excuse me. Okay. I would need to grab these figures, and I would need both of them. And I can move them around my scene, and you can see now, like, the shadow from the can is falling across the figure, etc. And all the shadows change, and it still pretty much looks like it's appropriately attached in my scene. I have no idea how big these pop figures are actually supposed to be. But yeah, so I mean, that's like pretty much how I'd composite that image. You can see again here, this shadow is actually, like, again, it's doubling up on the soda can image, which looks indescribably awkward, but anywho. So I kind of liked it where it was before. I don't know why I just kind of do it, but anywho. But yeah, so you'll also notice that if I only grab one of these, say I'll grab figure no render, and I'll shift this over, you will notice that the shadow is shifting around awkwardly, which conceivably could be an interesting thing to do if you're rendering like Peter Pan or something like that, like where he's like, no, I have no shadow. You could animate one Peter Pan and turn off cast shadows, and then render one Peter Pan where his shadow is turned on, but primary visibility is not, so you just get like kind of the same effect where the shadow is running around. I don't really know why you'd want that, but anyway. So I'm just going to render this out really quick again, and then I will comp it together in the Photoshops, and yeah.